Hey guys, I want to talk a little bit about the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict that was read. I want to talk about kind of the ripple effect and kind of some things that were put in place as a result of this verdict and why it was so important the way it all went down. First of all, this was clearly an attack on the Second Amendment. Yes, it was. I don't care what anybody says. It was clear that the prosecution, without question, they had an agenda. There's just no question that these guys were not seeking the truth. They were seeking a verdict. And that's not what prosecutors are supposed to do. I am not an attorney, but I can read and I know how things work. I know that race car drivers are supposed to drive their car as fast as they can and cross the finish line first. And I know what prosecutors are supposed to do. They are supposed to, in the name of the state that they are in, they are supposed to seek out the truth and let things happen as they're supposed to, because they are working for the people. They should not be working for a particular political party. In this case, they were. But a prosecutor is supposed to find out the details of the case, find the actual proof, and if that proof in fact does convict the defendant, then that defendant should serve time, go to prison for life, whatever the consequences are. However, you should never be seeking a conviction under any means necessary. You should never be compromising your own morals as a prosecutor just to get that conviction. I realize in a lot of cases, prosecutors are looking for that next step. They want to be able to say they successfully prosecuted X amount of cases. But that's not how it's supposed to work. That's not what their job is. Their job is not to win every single case. Their job is to win every single case where the defendant is guilty. That's what their job is. And these prosecutors did not set out to do that. They were not seeking the truth. They in fact fudged the truth. They in fact lied. They in fact hid evidence from the defendants, from the jury, for as long as they possibly could. The judge called them out on that, rightfully so. This was a travesty, as a lot of these wackos will tell you, but a travesty in the wrong way. A travesty the way the prosecution was used as a vehicle to try to accomplish some kind of stupid political gain here. What was the political gain? The political gain was the fact that a young man, a white man in fact, not trying to make this about race, they made it about race, not me, but this was in fact a white man who used, oh my God, an AR-15 to defend himself. Those are all things that the wacko left hates. They don't like a white person with any kind of empowerment. They absolutely hate and fear, among any other thing in the world, an AR-15. And guess what? He legally defended himself. And I'm not even going to get into the fact that the left seem to be forgetting the fact that these three people who were shot were not only felons, not saying all felons should be shot, but the fact that these felons attacked this person, and they're also protecting a child rapist. I saw a banner with the child rapist, and I'm not even going to say his name here. I saw a banner with the child rapist who got a really nice dirt nap handed to him by Kyle Rittenhouse with his face on the banner, and it said hero next to it. Are you kidding me? I understand he was not shot because he's a child rapist, but he was shot because he was attacking somebody else. It was self-defense, and you still put this guy on a pedestal? This is your chance as left-wing wackos to walk away from the child rapist. Do you not see that you had your opportunity to actually abandon somebody that you did not need to be defending? You had your out. The fact that this guy was a felon and he attacked somebody and was rightfully dusted, you guys still push this man as a hero, instead of taking your opportunity to quietly bail out on him like you should have. But some things happened in this trial that should be a really good lesson. I'm really hopeful. I'm also equally doubtful, but I'm hopeful that we know that for the most part, the legal institution is left-leaning. For the most part, not all of them. I know some really good conservative attorneys, but I know way more wacko left-leaning attorneys. So the hope that I have is this trial can be used as things not to do. Now, the defense didn't do a great job either. Honestly, the defense, I thought, did a very weak job. The defense, to me, could have been far more aggressive in protecting Kyle Rittenhouse. I think maybe they didn't because they knew they had such a strong case. I think they saw that the prosecution was unraveling their own case, so they sat back and just let them do it. That may have been their approach. Because again, I feel like there was a lot of very obvious missed opportunities by the defense to go back after the prosecution, and they didn't do that. So again, hey, their attorney's not me. They won the case. Maybe that was their plan all along, and obviously it worked. But it seems as though this case could be a very obvious, very good opportunity to school people on Fifth Amendment issues, how you don't bring up the Fifth Amendment issues. And if you guys aren't clear on that, it was questioning Kyle Rittenhouse's, choice to stay silent leading up to the trial. You're not supposed to do that. That's number one, it's unconstitutional. You really do have the right to remain silent. The Fifth Amendment tells you you do. That's not just something that police officers say. You have the right to remain silent. And that was attacked and questioned by the prosecution. That's a big no-no. That's a big no-no. They fudged evidence. They enhanced evidence. It was proven that there was this really weak, lame lie that they texted or emailed over. I think they emailed over. They enhanced video that they enhanced with the drone footage of the shooting. And in fact, it was a much poorer quality that the defense got. But it also came out later that the file name was changed. A file name is not changed during a compression of a video file. I happen to know this. I don't have to be a trial lawyer to know this. But your file name will stay the same. It can be compressed, but it's going to stay the same. Your device does not, it does compress it automatically, but it doesn't change the name. So there were some very obvious things that the prosecution did incorrectly. And again, hopefully these are all learning opportunities for future law students to see that this is not how you do things, that you will lose your blank. I try not to cuss in my videos. You will lose your blank in a court of law if you attempt to do the things that these idiots, Binger and this other guy, they won't be in their jobs much longer. My guess is they will probably get guest spots on CNN, MSNBC, which was banned from the courtroom for trying to follow the jurors. So I think they'll get a part-time job somewhere later because clearly they were trying to flex to get some kind of a future job, knowing full well they were failing miserably in this trial. So again, hopefully we do learn some lessons from this and some future law students can see some things of not to do. And let's try to let this jury process work the way it's supposed to and not taint the jury's thought process and the whole process, if you will. Now, some things that I feel like were very, very important. I feel like, I hear a lot of people say this was a win for self-defense. It was. No, there's no question. This was an absolute win for self-defense as far as proving that what most people already knew, you have the legal right to defend yourself when somebody is pursuing you and attacking you. The lie that there was an active shooter is an absolute lie. That was another thing the prosecutor kind of ginned up and made. Guys, there was not the threat of an active shooter. When Kyle Rittenhouse shot the first time, there was no overwhelming thing that, oh my God, there's an active shooter here, and now everybody is pursuing the active shooter. That's not what was happening here. You had zero reports. There were no newscasts. When Kyle Rittenhouse fired his weapon that night, none of the newscasts, none of the headlines stated possible active shooter. Active shooter in process in Kenosha. There was nothing like that there. That did not happen. Why? Because nobody thought it was an active shooter. They did not shoot in some hidden alleyway or something like that. It was out in the open where hundreds of people witnessed it. And once hundreds of people witnessed that the Antifa people were attacking a Second Amendment advocate, then all the other Antifa people and Black Lives Matter people, they ascended on Kyle Rittenhouse and proceeded to chase him. And it was just a mob mentality, the typical far wacko left-leaning mob mentality, where when one person does it, it's a monkey see, monkey do effect, where they all start jumping on fact because they're group thinkers and they can't do things on their own. That gets you shot as proof in the Rittenhouse issue. You can't just blindly follow somebody else and assume that's a bad guy, go get him. you better be ready for the consequences. And there were some pretty dire consequences in this case. So I feel like one of the biggest victories in this whole verdict was not just the fact that Second Amendment people who want to defend themselves won. The true victors, I truly believe this, and I have not checked numbers this morning, but if you guys will remember, in 2020, there was a record amount of new gun owners in the United States, a record amount. Now I'm talking about people who had never owned firearms before, purchased firearms, and were now brand new firearm owners in the United States. I believe the numbers were that 7 million were new gun owners. And again, I'll look for the numbers. I'm not trying to mislead. I'll put them on screen if I can find them as during production. But I believe it was about 7 million new gun owners. 60% of those were female gun owners. And another large percentage were minority gun owners, non-white people. That's who won in this case. I truly in my heart believe that. That's who truly won. Think about this. And I don't mean the women and the minorities. I'm talking about that 7 million, all those new gun owners in general. I'm just stating the fact that minorities and women made up a very large chunk of that. The reason why I think it's a big win for them is because all these brand new gun owners, look, we're part of a subculture. The gun culture is an absolute culture. It's not what the left thinks it is, but it is an absolute culture. They think that the gun culture is a bunch of people hiding out in the woods in 30-year-old camouflage, shooting guns in the air and singing along to white supremacy songs. That shows you how disconnected that group is to middle America. That shows you how disconnected they are, because they don't even try to figure out what the gun community is about. They don't even attempt that. They don't even try to infiltrate the gun community. They simply make these wild assumptions based on somebody's Twitter feed and assume that we're all like that, not realizing that we're the people who are building their homes. We're the people who are delivering their mail. We're the people working in their banks. We're the people who are serving them food. It's not a bunch of hillbillies out in the woods hiding out from Uncle Sam. That's not what the gun community is about. But don't let the left hear you say that, because they will say, oh yeah, well, I know better. You've got all these brand new gun owners who purchase firearms not to go kill people. They're not looking to do that. They're looking to defend themselves and their families. And if you are a brand new gun owner, you've only owned your gun for a year when this trial comes up. If Kyle Rittenhouse were found guilty by this bunch of hacks in the prosecution, don't you think these brand new gun owners who aren't totally familiar with the whole gun community and gun culture yet, don't you think they would have sat back and said, well, so much for defending myself. The whole reason why I got a gun was to defend myself, and here I am. I can't do it now because apparently it's illegal. Apparently a guy who's getting chased down by a guy swinging something at him, trying to hit him in the head, if you shoot that person attacking you with an object intending to do you harm, I can't shoot them. And if another guy pulls a gun on me and aims it at me and was attempting to shoot me and intimidate me with that gun and chase me down with that gun, I can't shoot them either. So what can I shoot and who can I shoot? Not that you're looking for somebody to shoot, but if I'm being attacked, at what point is it fair for me to pull my trigger and legally do so? All those new gun owners would have been questioning that. They would have been questioning the obvious facts that they saw with their own eyes. Even the wackos on the left know that Kyle Rittenhouse was innocent. They don't want to admit that because it's not cool in their circles and they got to think like all the rest of their people think. But they know that. So all these new gun owners watch this trial. I guarantee you they were watching this trial with bated breath and just looking at it, watching it going, innocent, innocent, innocent. That's why I got a gun, in case some wackos like that do that to me. And if they would have turned in a guilty verdict, all these people would have lost hope and the ability to defend themselves and their families. I guarantee you they would have. So I think that's the true victors in all of this. All the new gun owners that have entered into the gun community that now feel validated in their decision to purchase a firearm and protect themselves and their families. So kudos to them for hanging in there and seeing this thing through. Again, I know there are left-leaning people who bought guns too, and it wasn't just conservatives who purchased firearms. There were liberals who purchased firearms too. And they may be very, very quiet in their circles, or they may just be piling into the groupthink right now with all their friends just because they want to seem cool like them and then walk away going, knowing they've got a gun at home and they're going to use it to protect themselves and their family if they have to. So I think those are the big victors here, the new gun owners out there. Guys, I think that we have to continue to show the level of restraint that Kyle Rittenhouse showed. The man didn't go in there trying to shoot a bunch of people, but it's very, very obvious that these courts are not going to look at the law and self-defense as it is on its face, the very obvious evidence that's on its face. It's obvious that now this has been made political. And I think that the restraint that we have to show as firearms owners and those of us that carry on a daily basis, we've got to show a level of restraint that we probably never showed before. I already recognize that we are extremely responsible and hold ourselves to a much higher standard as it is. But it's definitely one of those situations now that we will be put under the spotlight even more so going forward by prosecutors who are going to want to try to make a name for themselves, or maybe even potentially right the wrong that happened in the Rittenhouse case to actually slam us in the event that we're in a similar situation, because they tried everything they could to put this poor kid in prison. And my heart goes out to him and his family, definitely in this case. One thing I do want to point out, and I think that this is a very good point as far as recognizing what the left, and I shouldn't say the left, that's probably unfair, what the media and politicians have constantly tried to do to us. They've tried to drive a divisive wedge, not just between left and right, between all races, between all classes of people. They separate everybody based on how much money they make, what they like, what they do, what they don't do, all that kind of stuff. The media has done a fabulous job of that. I think the fact that last night, the Friday night that the verdict was passed, I think the fact that there were no riots, there were no cities burnt down. There were people who marched. There were people who walked, a handful of people. But if you look at it, they were calling for riots for a couple of weeks. They were trying to taint the jurors by threatening riots ahead of time based on what the verdict would have been in the case. So everybody had this big, big idea that there were going to be massive riots out there if Kyle Rittenhouse was found innocent or not guilty. Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty. There were no riots, no buildings burnt to the ground. None of that stuff happened. Why? Because even people on the left who were repeating all of this stuff knew in their minds that Kyle Rittenhouse was innocent. They knew this. And maybe, just maybe, the media was wrong in this whole thing. And that the country is not so divided on this topic. Maybe, just maybe, the United States citizens, the people in the United States as a whole, see that Kyle Rittenhouse should have never been on trial in the first place, and that he was absolutely innocent of any of the charges and was rightfully found not guilty. Just maybe that's what happened.
Let's go, Brandon.